Hello again and welcome back to my channel. I'm downstairs in the downstairs hall, crouching in front of this bookcase, which is kind of tucked away, and I'd forgotten about things that were in it, which I suppose is the point. This is where books go when I've read them, but not enough time has gone for them to kind of mature in my head. So I don't know if I want to keep them or reread them or whatever I want to do with them yet. That's my thinking anyway. There's all sorts of things in here from quite recent years. It's all a bit mixed up. There's things from last year. Premonitions Bureau. That was a wonderful non-fiction book by Sam Knight. Yeah, I really liked that. And it read like a kind of Doctor Who story, but it was all true about people having premonitions, the kinds of people who had premonitions, and stuff about asylums. What else? Yeah, there's quite a lot that I read last year and the year before. Here's The Ghost Cat, Alex Howard, which I bought multiple copies of as presents last year. That's a lovely book, and one that I'll be ready to revisit again in a while. Who else? Nimona, which became a film last year. This is a lovely graphic novel. Slightly tiny print, which I was squinting like this. I think that's Specsaver's fault rather than mine. Whoops, whoops. Ooh, this is really awkward crouching. But in amongst the stuff from last year are things that I don't know. I mean, like here, for example, John Fowles. It's another copy of The Magus, which we must have 3 or 4 copies around the house between us. Jeremy's got a very fancy hardback that I nicked quite some time ago and still have. Here's John Reshi's City of Night, which I just love. The book that became, kind of, my own private Idaho. There's Diane Keaton's memoir, Grace Dent's memoir, another David Levitt book, Family Dancing. That author photo. I think that's why I started reading David Levitt. Yeah, this is his first collection of stories from, let me see, 83, 84. I think this is the first British edition of those. This I read last year when it was, there was a lot of people talking about this witchy novel. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I quite liked it. It was more kind of romance than witchiness, as I seem to remember, and I quite enjoyed it. Don't know if I'd read a sequel. Oh, here's a whole pile of pan books of horror. Look at these. These are really read into oblivion. They're in order, actually, 1 through to 11. What I want are stories by Arthur, is it Machen? I don't know if he was in these, actually. I assumed he was. And then when I was reading about him, I thought, I know where I've got stories by him. But maybe I don't. I shall have to check them all. Not on camera. No, I can't see his name cropping up. I wonder if somebody can advise me where you can find his stories, apart from in collections of actually by him. Bob Mortimer's memoir, Paul O'Grady's memoir. I seem to read a lot of memoirs. Here's some. This was a reading project that I loved doing. When I got to 50, about 4 years ago, I had this idea of reading novels, popular novels that were big when I was first born and when my first few years. So the idea was to read a book for each of these kind of early years, and I did that in my in the year I was 50. So I read things that I'd never read before, like Love Story, which is such a short and really lovely novel, actually. Things I would never have thought to read. The Odessa File by Frederick Forsyth, which is a brilliant film as well. And I loved it. It was a proper Cold War thriller. And then, of course, Herman Wouk's Winds of War. And I remember reading this, or watching this on TV when I was a kid, when it was one of those huge sweeping sagas, the mini-series they called them in the 80s. The novel has just the same effect, but look at the tiny print, the close, tight pages. But I loved it nevertheless. What else is here? There's kind of treasure here. Tolkien's biography by Humphrey Carpenter. A novel about the pop world, The Thunder Girls, that was a big hit a couple of years ago, Melanie Blake. This must be 5 years ago. I think I remember sitting in the garden in the summer with this, 2019. See, there's books from kind of immediately before COVID that are put away in here, and that's interesting. 2 volumes of this, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, the first 2 books in this series, which I loved actually, but I haven't read the 3rd and 4th ones. They're a bit repetitious, but I guess that's the point, isn't it? That's what we like. The Vanished Bride, the first in a detective series by Bella Ellis, which is a pen name for Rowan Coleman. And this is about the Bronte sisters solving murders. There's a whole series of them now. Another first edition hardback for the person who was asking. Yes, I do have a lot of first edition hardbacks, new ones, but I have old ones as well. And it's not me collecting things or wanting to keep things immaculate, because, as I said, I love reading copies. That's a lovely book. What's down here? My Friend George Mann. I think that's his first, isn't it? The Osiris Ritual. Oh, is it the second one? I get mixed up now. There's the American edition. Oh, that's very fancy. His Newbery and Hobbs series. The back reads like this, if you don't know it already. Death stalks London, and the newspapers proclaim that a mummy's curse has been unleashed. Sir Maurice Newbery, gentleman investigator for the Crown, is drawn into a web of occult intrigue as he attempts to solve the murders, and he soon finds himself on the trail of a rogue agent, a man who died to be reborn as a living weapon. Newbery's able assistant, Miss Veronica Hobbs, has her own mystery to unravel. Girls are going missing from a magician's theatre show, but what appears to be a straightforward investigation puts Miss Hobbs in mortal danger. Can Newbery save his assistant, solve the riddle of the mummy's curse, capture the deadly man-machine, and stop the terrifying Osiris ritual from reaching its infernal culmination? Oh, The Affinity Bridge was the first one, but this was the first one I read. It was in Waterstones in 2009, and I bought it because I loved that blurb on the back. To me, it was a perfect blend of some of my favourite Doctor Who's, the Towns of Weng-Chiang, of course, and the Pyramids of Mars. And when, not long after that, I met George, I asked him, and of course he was a massive Doctor Who fan. We connected online and realised we had many, many people in common in all kinds of fandoms. But also when we met up for a drink in town, we realised we had almost exactly the same accent, and with a few questions, soon realised that we'd gone to the same school, we'd lived in the same town. When it's posh people, that's quite common. They all went to some posh school and some posh university. With us, it was Newton Aycliffe in County Durham, and it was Woodham Comp. So the chances are just bizarre. But there we were 10 years apart though, so we were never in the same place at the same time. We were taught by the same English teachers, John Bleasdale especially, who also taught Mark Gatiss when he was at Woodham Comp as well, 2 years ahead of me. We had the same English teachers who said, stop reading so many Doctor Who books and go and read some H.G. Wells and some Arthur Conan Doyle and other things as well. And so we all had the same indoctrination. Indoctrination is good, isn't it? That's like being obsessed with Doctor Who. Dedoctrination, perhaps, is the word. Here's somebody else whose books I really love. I've only read a couple, actually. I've read his non-fiction book, Paperbacks from Hell, about 1980s horror. But My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix is a great parody. It begins as a parody. It looks like a parody. But because he loves the genre so much, it becomes completely deadly serious, which I loved. I'm noticing all sorts of things that I haven't looked at for a long time. Books on, A Cat Mystery by Lillian Jackson Braun, and Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Louis de Bernier, who came and taught for us for a while at UEA. It was very nice. It was a lot of fun. Gerald Kaufman's book on the left. He was our MP here in Levenshulme. We got to know him towards the end of his life. He would come to lots of kind of events in Levy. He was a grand old man who was very clever and principled and would tell people off for being cheeky, which people really need, I think. They need to be told when they're being cheeky. Luckily, I was never told off. He was always very nice to me, and he came to see an exhibition of my paintings, which was nice. Here's a series that I collected up. I read them from the library at the time in Aycliffe. They're Terrence Dicks' horror series. There's one missing from here. This is the best one, Marvin's Monster, because that's in my bookcase upstairs of favourite things. Oh, because it's my favourite. These are kind of okay, but they're not things that I have to have beside me all the time. It was a great series about kids encountering monsters from the kind of universal horror films. Look at that, the first one, Cry Vampire, where the vampire looks a bit like Tim Curry. Wereboy. Oh, actually, these are a great series. They work a bit like Susan Cooper's Dark as Rising as well, with different characters overlapping and then meeting up in the final adventure. Demon in the Dark and War of the Witches and The Ghosts of Gallows Cross. I really liked his books. Sometimes they were slightly skimpy. As he raced for deadlines, he thought he's skipping to the end of it. But he's just chock-a-block with ideas and this great zest for storytelling. That's what I love about Terrence Dicks. And he could dip into thrillers, historical drama. Like Doctor Who, he could move about in genres and times and places. This is a nice series. I've only read the first two of these, but The Land of Stories, Chris Colfer. And the second one, the first one is The Wishing Spell. And then The Enchantress Returns, a world in which all the fairy tales and all the kids' books are true. And they're good, rollicking good stories. I bought the whole set in hardback, so I will be getting through them at some point, but slowly, eking them out. I think I'll stop there because my knees are absolutely killing me from crouching down. There's a Tony Warren novel, look, Foot of the Rainbow, his second one. I do think I've got all of his in hardback. Yeah, in first edition. And they're treasured, really. Yeah, they're properly treasured. There's lots of lovely things here. Anyway, I will go, and I'll post this at some point on Sunday, I think. I hope you're having a really good weekend. It's been properly sunny and a nice time to just sit and read this weekend. I will talk to you again soon, if I ever straighten up from crouching. Anyway, goodbye, and I'll see you again in the next episode.